you and I have talked about this before. You talked about this a million times probably about answer the question that your prospective sellers have in their mind right now. And so, can I sell my house right now? How do you look at my house right now? Like, just think of all these questions that somebody could have. You create content around that, whether it's ads or blogs or whatever, right? And so I think more than ever right now, if you're still sending the same message of, I want to buy your house for cash, we can close fast, consider that some people right now don't want to close fast, or they don't know if they really can close fast, or where am I going to go if you close fast? Like, that might actually, basically push people away, right? And so if there was ever a time to kind of change up your messaging and soften it up as to, I don't have the answers to everything, but we help a lot of people, and we usually start by talking through the situation and solving a problem together. Like, the more you can kind of send that message, then the more people want to talk to you, because the truth is a lot of people that are still sending mail right now or advertising haven't changed anything. They're still using a hammer and trying to drive that nail in, right? Yep. And so the more you can differentiate yourself there and answer the questions that they have in their mind, the better you're going to be.
What's up, y'all? Trevor here with Carrot. I'm in a bit of a different environment. If you guys are watching on the video part of this, if you're on YouTube, I don't have my fancy audio equipment with me. I definitely don't have the fancy background with me right now. But I've got an amazing guest. He's a returner, probably the third or fourth time on the Carrot Cast now. And y'all, this is a bit of a different episode. Like I said, the time that I'm recording this right now is April. I was about ready to say April Fools. It's April 1st. No, this is not an April Fool's joke. But we're kind of in the middle of that COVID, the coronavirus situation. And what I've been doing this week is talking with lots of investors, lots of agents, and finding out, number one, what are they seeing in the market? We're seeing a lot of people who are still closing lots of deals and closing lots of transactions, y'all. So I think there's a lot of fear where people are having some unfounded fears that's holding them back on some things. But there are some things that are happening. And also, number two is, what are the savvy investors and agents on this particular episode? We're going to be focusing on the investor side of it. What are they looking at for the next several weeks, next several months for opportunities, things to make sure they're protecting themselves, things like that. So I wanted to get on the horn today. Mike Hambright from InvestorFuel, Flip Nerd, Investor Machine, tons of different amazing things. But
got too many brands.
Dude, but they're all amazing, right? So the reason I want to hit you up here specifically was, number one, InvestorFuel, which we're a part of. It's one of the top, if not the top, mastermind for house flippers, wholesalers, real estate investors in the country. And you guys are having lots of conversations. When you and I were talking last week, you said, man, that's pretty much half of my schedule right now is carving out calls with our InvestorFuel members who are all high-level investors. Many of them are agents as well, to figure out what shifts, what moves we need to make in your business. How can we help you prepare? So welcome back on the Carrot Cast, man.
Yeah, glad to be back, my friend.
Well, so this, like I said, Mike, and everyone listening to this or watching this will be a shorter episode. This won't be one of the traditional hour-long interview style Carrot Cast. This is going to be kind of punching to the point. We're going to dive into what is Mike and the other InvestorFuel members seeing, 100-plus amazing investors around the country in that group. What types of things are they doing right now to ensure that their businesses are safe and secure? Or if they're not safe and secure, what should they be doing to make sure? And then the next things are kind of, what are some of those opportunities? So we'll kind of start at the start. And just to give context for people who don't know who you are, if they haven't listened to one of the past Carrot Casts with you, or what InvestorFuel is, I want you to introduce yourself to the Carrot Cast community.
Yeah, I'll try to do the short version. Cool. I'm Mike Hambright. I'm a real estate investor in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. I've been investing for a little over 12 years, flipped several hundred houses here. And a couple years after I had done about 100 houses, I started coaching and mentoring people, and I've been doing that ever since. And so I get a lot of value out of teaching other people and showing other people how to kind of leave the rat race, which is what I did. I kind of refer to myself as a corporate refugee. Mm-hmm. And, we kind of came in the market at a different time to where we were able to kind of crush it. We were super focused on it and never looked back. And I love that freedom that it's given our family for sure. So, over time, I started Flip Nerd, which is about 6.5 years ago, started a podcast, and that's turned into 1,500 video podcasts now.
That's crazy.
6.5 years. Yeah. And, through coaching and stuff and through the podcast, which is an interview style, much like this, build up a lot of amazing relationships, and just decided to jump into the mastermind game and try to bring together my friends, because I've always been a natural connector. I've always like said, hey, do you know Trevor Mock? Well, let me introduce you guys. You guys really need to talk, right? I've always been that guy. And it was just a super natural fit for me. And now it's probably the most fun thing that I've ever done in my life. I mean, it is a business for us, but it's like just brings a lot of joy that as entrepreneurs, we all do things that we don't want to do. And when InvestorFuel, we have quarterly meetings, but we're kind of a family 365 days a year. But when those weeks come around, it's like homecoming. We're like super excited to see everybody. And it's been amazing. So, what's been interesting over the past few years is when we get together, everybody's celebrating, everybody's having, their best months ever and all that. And all of a sudden we hit this wall, right? We're like, what the heck just happened here? So I say that what's been funny, interesting, I say not funny, interesting, is I can't tell you how many members that we've talked to over the past week that said, I know things are crazy right now, but this is my best month ever. It's weird. Now, will that happen 2 or 3 months from now if lending tightens up and stuff? Probably not. Like things are going to start to slow down here. So the question is, I say they're going to slow down. They're going to slow down if you keep doing what you've been doing, right? You just have to shift. You got to pivot now. And where to pivot exactly, like that is the question, right? What do you do differently? But I think you and I both know, whether you're a real estate agent or an investor anyway, over the past several years, just because of the market cycle, a lot of us pick up bad habits. And so now it's like, okay, it's a little bit of time for a cleansing, right?
Dude, so I definitely want to dive into that a lot. And one thing that you had mentioned there a little bit ago was that many people are reporting their best months ever, right? I was talking with Aaron and Krista Farr out of Spokane, Washington. They're agents first, but also investors on the back end, and they have some amazing investment projects going. They're developing a whole duplex community there. They're a part of 2 big commercial projects downtown. He also flips houses on the side as well. And so they're deep in both of them, and they had their best month. They had 8 transactions close in the month of March. Now, you look at that and go, well, why is that? Well, number one, there's a couple things I'm going to dive into that I've seen that I want to toss over to you, Mike, to see what you've seen in your business, but also from the tons of investors you've been talking to over the past several weeks at InvestorFuel. But here's one thing, y'all, is they didn't hit the brakes. Like, they followed the laws that were put in place in that area, the stay-at-home stuff. But what they did is they pivoted. Like Mike said, they are in Spokane, they're not allowed to have more than 2 people in a house as of today. They just lifted up some sort of order where you couldn't do open houses at all. You couldn't do showings at all. Now you still can't do open houses, but you can do showings. And it can't be more than 2 people total, like the agent and 1 client. And so what they're doing still is they got like 4 listings under contract the last week or 2. And it was all through Zoom. It was like literally this. The client would walk them through the house, and the client would show them this and show them that. And as an agent, you can still do a lot of that work there. And same thing with an investor. We'll talk about this later. What can you as an investor do today in this very unique time period? And I'll tell some data that we have in our database, y'all, that shows sellers are still looking to sell, but your conversion rates have dropped a bit because they're not sure what they're supposed to do while the coronavirus is going on. We're going to talk about how to combat that and still win contracts. But going back to what you'd been talking about, what are some of those big things that are popping up with the InvestorFuel members, or some of them, where you said, man, when things are going great, it's easy to kind of cover the mistakes. What are some of those mistakes that are possibly being uncovered right now, or that may be if this keeps going?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, and I won't say this of our group, because when you are a successful real estate investor, for the most part, you are principled, right? You need to buy deep. So we all know, as real estate investors, we've been complaining for years about all the newbies that are in the market that are screwing it up, and they're overpaying for houses. And there's plenty. We were all newbies at some point. I'm not saying anything bad about newbies. I'm a coach and a mentor, so I teach a lot of new people. But we teach them. I'm talking about the people that went in and they're trying to sell the house for full ARV and it needs a bunch of work, and they offered way too much to just lock up a deal. And to later probably back out on it because they couldn't buy it anyway. But, or somehow, some way, they're eking out a couple of grand and somebody's actually buying it from them. Like, who the heck is paying for that, right? So all that kind of unprincipled buying behavior, where people were overpaying for houses, is going to come. That's the first thing to kind of go away, right? And then the other thing is the people that are hobbyists, right? So if you're not committed to advertising, if you're not committed to lead generation, or if you still have a job and you've been dipping your toe in the water and you're like, oh my God, got to get out of this real estate thing. It's going to crash or whatever. And you go back, like all the hobbyists are going to go away. Right. And so, so I think the people it's like, clear the people out of the way that didn't know what they were doing. Now let's let the professionals take over. Some of that is happening. Right. Yep. And the truth is, last month, if it was their best month, they're benefiting from some activity that probably happened in January and February, right? You got some deals that are finally closing now. But, I think depending on how long this thing lasts, we'll see how disruptive this is. But I think on the backside of this for investors, and I hope the backside is like May, or June, we'll see here. There'll clearly be some economic disruption for a while now with this many people out of a job for probably, a lot of folks are living paycheck to paycheck. So even a couple months is disruptive. But so I think I'm rambling a little bit now, but I think the question was like, what are some of the bad habits people are getting rid of? Paying too much for houses, cheap money that's been around for a long time. If you weren't focused on building relationships, I had Ray Gonzalez earlier, and he's like, I'm still lending because all these people that I lend to, they're my friends. Like we talk about stuff, we have these relationships, and I know that they're safe. But if you were dealing with some faceless lender because they saved you a point and they did a deal or two here and there, like those relationships are drying up right now, right? So it's just kind of getting back to fundamentals, like evaluating deals properly, not getting sloppy and paying too much, not getting sloppy and not evaluating the deal all that well, just like looking at a couple pictures online and jumping in. And, it's an opportunity to kind of tighten up and get back to some fundamentals.
Totally. And dude, so as we're kind of looking at and talking with a lot of agents and investors right now too, one of those things that you had mentioned is some of the hobbyists, or even if they are full-time, but they have some bad habits around marketing, some inconsistency, right, emotion versus math. We are seeing some of them pull back on their marketing, and I'll kind of give my opinion on it. I'd like to toss it over to you to see what you're seeing in your group or what you're suggesting your investors to do. But right now is not the time to pull back, y'all. Right before I hit record on this, when I was talking to Mike, I said, Mike, now this isn't for house sellers per se, but this is for like Facebook. This is for like Google in general. What's happening is there's so much ad spend being pulled back by the average mom and pop business, or even some of the big ones, that you can right now get really, really good ad costs on your Facebook and Google spend. We were able to get leads, today for $6 to $8 a lead for a certain type of a lead that we're getting. Now, I'm not saying that's a seller lead, okay? I'm just saying for comparison, where 2 months ago we were paying $20 to $25 for the same lead. And so we're able to upload videos on there that are really good videos that are engaging. Just do a boost, do like a 5-day boost, $5 a day. And we're able to get really good leads coming in with those oftentimes way cheaper than a $6, $8 lead. Some of them are way less. So start to experiment with some of those lead sources, guys. Don't pull back with them. Even on direct mail, there might be some mail houses right now where you might be able to negotiate with them. Rather than going in there and saying, I'm cutting it all, why don't you say, I'm actually going to double it, but I want to negotiate my rates, because a lot of them have gotten their business cut. And so where can you go around those different spots and use this opportunity to get marketing for lower cost to start to build that pipeline for the next 1, 2, 3 months instead of shutting your pipeline down? What are you seeing on your side, Mike? What are people doing with their marketing?
Yeah, I think what you just said is accurate. Like, I think that people, so first off, we're seeing the same thing. Pay-per-click, Facebook advertising, like costs are down right now for the same reasons that you said, right? I do think people are a little longer in their decision-making process now, because this is so new. We're a couple weeks into this thing as of the time we're recording this, that every day is like a dog year. We've been saying it's like it's like so much more information gets unveiled, or so much confidence like grows or contracts or whatever on a day-to-day basis right now. So I think a lot of people are seeing lead costs come down online. I think what's happening is the conversations are higher quality, because people are, when a seller calls you, they're not necessarily like, I need to sell this thing right now, but they're like, I don't really know what's going on. I might be interested. And so you and I have talked about this many times before. We should be planting seeds and kind of building long-term relationships anyway, right? So if you haven't been doing that, that's another one of these bad habits of, real estate investors, because the margins have been so high for so long. They tend to be like, churn and burn through those leads. Like, do you want to sell right now for cash? Oh, you don't? See ya, move on to the next one. It's like, you need to nurture those relationships and really help people solve problems. And so I think that's an opportunity for this. What we're seeing is one of the things that we started last summer is the Investor Machine, and it's an agency for primarily we manage direct mail and skip tracing. But what we do differently is we stack data. So a lot of people have talked about stacking data, finding all the distress points of sellers, whether it's recent divorce, probate, mowing liens. We actually have about 40 different data points that we try to get in each market where we have a customer at. And so we were out in front of this thing, but we knew, hey, marketing's been getting more expensive over the years, right? So the problem is a lot of people have been mailing to lists, for example, like age and equity, or I'm going to hit all absentee owners, as if they all might be distressed. We're just casting this really wide net to try to catch people. And so we're out in front of this thing a little bit. So we're using data to drive marketing. So for a lot of people, we've helped drive their marketing costs down because we're not marketing to people that the data would indicate, yes, they have equity, but they have no distress. So don't waste your money on them, right? So I think, instead of just cutting advertising, it's get smarter about who you're advertising to, get more targeted on people that probably have more distress. And the only thing that can ultimately tell you that is the data.
Dude, and with that too, I can't remember if I was talking with you about it I've been on so many phone calls last week or two. Really good stuff. But we were looking into, did I tell you about the data on our side? Traffic and conversions, how did that change in the last 2 weeks? Did I tell you about
I'm not sure if we talked about that last week.
I'll tell you about it. So I'm working up a blog post for it. It's going to be a short one because it's really simple information, and I'll be able to tell it to you guys in 60 seconds. And essentially, we have access to so much data, millions of visitors per year to our Carrot customer sites, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of leads, mostly sellers, through our sites. If you count phone call leads as well, which we can't track, that's probably over 1 million leads per year coming through our system alone, and mostly sellers. And the reason I'm bringing this up is we have a lot of data points. Customers in most every city in the country, customers, and it's a really wide swath. So we were looking back, how has this impacted things? How has this impacted things in the last 2 weeks since the start of March? Started the thing. And what we saw was it's only about a 10% dip in traffic. So where some industries are seeing 40, 50% dips, maybe more. And some are seeing a big growth, right? Like if you're a toilet paper salesman right now, or you're selling any equipment, or you're selling anything like that, you're going to see big growth right now. So there's a lot of opportunity right now if you pivot. But we're only seeing about a 10% dip is all. And then we started to see that dip level off the past week as of today. And I think it's going to probably stay that way. Then it might inch back up over the next 2 to 4 weeks. And it's not because the coronavirus thing is getting better yet. I think it's just not a new fear anymore. It's not worth paralyzing people. It's almost like people have found this weird new normal at home. And they're like, okay, I can still live. Like I can still do stuff. It's just a little bit different than before.
They're comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly. We're only seeing like a 10% drop there, but here's where it gets really interesting. Is on the conversion side, we saw about a 30% drop. So, and it's a very like, as soon as stay-at-home orders hit, man, in California and all the big states, bam, conversion dropped about 30%. It wasn't this slow thing. It was just like that, and it stayed about that. We found that the most traffic for sellers usually comes in on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, mostly Monday. Most conversions follow the same or on Monday for sellers. And the reason this is interesting, because the demand for seller traffic is still up. Conversions are down 30%, which to me says people still have the problem. Some of them, it's even getting more acute. It's getting even more worse. They have more of a need. But just in their ensure mindset of where am I going to move? Can I even move right now? Right? Some people are hesitating to take that next step to opt into a website or to call because they're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to tell them. They can't even come to my house anyway, or I don't want them to come to my house right now. So that's where what Mike is saying, y'all, is really important to double down on that marketing, but to actually create campaigns, not just talk to the person one time and say, oh, you're not looking to sell right now. Get them into a retargeting sequence on Facebook. It's crazy cheap right now. One of the videos should be like a COVID related video. Hey, this is trouble with XYZ home buyers. There's a lot of craziness happening right now in Denver, but you might still be looking at selling your home. Now you might be asking, can I sell my house in this market with COVID? Well, I'm going to walk you through some of the ways we're helping sellers do that right now and keeping you in your home during this crisis. And talk them through that and give them case studies and testimonials and create a page or a blog post on your website that shows how you're doing a lot of these meetings through Zoom or through FaceTime, accommodating to the sellers where they can still get their problems solved, but wait until the COVID thing is done so they can move out. And so right now you should be doing the same thing with direct mail. Do full-on sequences. Don't just do the one piece and say it's not working, because you're likely going to see a lower response right now as of today than you were used to 2 months ago. But keep the campaign going. And in a month and 2 months, once they kind of get their fears tampered down, they're likely going to step up there, or change one of your mail pieces to be related to COVID and talk, can I still sell my house in COVID and stay safe and healthy?
Yeah, we changed our messaging up on our main postcards to address the issue. And, you and I have talked about this before. You talked about this a million times probably, about answer the question that your prospective sellers have in their mind right now. And so, can I sell my house right now? How do you look at my house right now? Like, just think of all these questions that somebody could have. You create content around that, whether it's ads or blogs or whatever, right? And so I think more than ever right now, I think if you're still sending the same message of, I want to buy your house for cash, we can close fast, consider that some people right now don't want to close fast, or they don't know if they really can close fast, or where am I going to go if you close fast? Like, that might actually, basically push people away, right? And so if there was ever a time to kind of change up your messaging and soften it up as to, I don't have the answers to everything, but we help a lot of people, and we usually start by talking through the situation and solving a problem together. Like, the more you can kind of send that message, then the more people want to talk to you, because the truth is a lot of people that are still sending mail right now or advertising haven't changed anything. They're still using a hammer and trying to drive that nail in, right?
Yep.
And so the more you can differentiate yourself there and answer the questions that they have in their mind, the better you're going to be.
And dude, you're so spot on there with making sure to adjust that message. One thing that the agents and investors can do on top of that, whether you're doing direct mail or cold calling or any of those, is first of all, get in the mind of that prospect, right? Like, what are they thinking right now? What pains do they have? What frustrations they have? What desires they have? And speak to those directly. And there might be a piece of content that you guys can drive people to from that direct mail piece or from the ad or on a retargeting sequence that essentially is a guide, selling your house for a fair price during the COVID-19 crisis. How do you do it? Here's how to keep yourself safe. And here's how to know when to sell to get the most. Things like that can be valuable. So Mike, kind of looking forward, and of course, none of us have a crystal ball. I think if we did, I would have definitely got into some other business about 2 months ago.
the lottery ticket buying business, yeah.
Do the lottery ticket buying business. Our business is amazing. Right now, we've seen just a slight decrease in demand, just from the same thing. People kind of having some fear, not knowing what to do next. I feel there's gonna be a pop, but man, I would have invested in like Zoom 2 months ago and some other ones. But moving forward now, knowing that we don't have a crystal ball, let's kind of look at a couple scenarios. So let's say one of the scenarios is this ends up kind of being more like a U or kind of more like an L rather than a bounce back of a V, like the economy and everything.
Sure.
What if this takes a while? What if this takes 2, 3, 4, 5 months? What should investors do in their business to make sure that not only are they able to capitalize on opportunity and add value to the market still, but also making sure that they still have a business coming out of it? What pivots?
Right. I think everybody's trying to lean out a little bit, like get more efficient, right? And there's certain things that you shouldn't cost if you're, you shouldn't cut marketing. You should try to get smarter and more targeted there. But I think both of us would advocate not cutting your advertising budget, because that impacts you not just now, but it impacts you in the months ahead, because a lot of our stuff is we buy for investors for sure, right? So, and even if you're a listing agent, like a lot of your stuff comes on follow-up or comes back around down the road, right? So definitely don't advocate that. Advocate probably spending more time talking to sellers instead of trying to be short with them. Just try to build relationships over time. So a lot of our folks we're putting a lot of emphasis on putting the right systems and processes in place. I mean, that's a lot of what we do at InvestorFuel, is try to help people build a business that allows them to be a business owner and not kind of self-employed, right? Not a slave to the business. And if there was ever a time or a wake-up call to do that, that's kind of now, right? How do you get more efficient, which actually helps you get more cost out of the business over the long term?
Yeah.
And, those are the main things. I would say more than ever right now. I mean, it's going to sound super biased if I say you should be a part of a networking group like InvestorFuel. The truth is most of our members, or many of them we've said, I need this group more now than ever. And there's tons of free information online. The truth is I'm doing a lot of free information online. This is free information that we're sharing right now, right? So it's not that all the information is bad, but when you can get together in a solid peer-to-peer group with people that have been through what you've been to, that know you, they know their family, like the conversations and the learning that happens from those conversations is a whole nother level than inside of a free Facebook group or something. Getting advice from people that, you never even met before. Like, it's just a whole different story. So
dude,
I think just continue to invest on yourself and invest in your business, invest in marketing, invest in your business, and invest in infrastructure. That's the best advice I could give.
Dude, that's so important, because I know I'm a part of a couple groups, and I've talked about it on the podcast, what masterminds and what coaching that I'm a part of. And I know it's really easy, y'all, to, in this time right here, to find where to cut expenses. Now, you should cut expenses, like cut the ones that are kind of that fat, cut the ones that are the Netflix subscription, if that's something that is kind of really eating at your bottom line, or find where in your business are non-essential things. Your marketing is essential. If you're doing any type of direct mail, cold calling, online marketing, you need a high converting website. That thing alone could end up costing you tens of thousands of dollars if that's not there. You need a peer group. That's not a luxury at this point. That's one of those things that, like with the groups that I'm in, you get this different perspective from people on different sides of the country and in different phases of their business, different specialties. And I always pick something up from it. Like every single time man, you think about that. And now I go deploy it in my business, and I maybe never would have ran across that, or would have taken me years to find it. Or after this stuff was done, I would have went, man, I wish I knew what those guys knew 6 months ago, but I didn't know that because I wasn't plugged into it. And it's so
important. It's not just talk either. I'll tell you, you and before, well, I won't say the name, but before we started recording here, I was asking you if you know anybody that's in a certain person's program, because this guy is like a coach for coaches. And I was like, I'm really interested in this program he's got. And, I'm investing in myself right now. I don't just I practice what I preach. And we started doing some multifamily deals over the past year and a half through Corey Peterson, who's a very dear friend of mine, great guy. And, my wife, Lindsay, has been talking to several mentors that are out there that have programs that they're not cheap programs for sure. And we're like, what's happened for us is in this time, we've invested in some multifamily. We have a rental portfolio, single family rental portfolio. And the way my wife has interpreted all this is like, we're not far enough along in where we want to be with multifamily. Like, that's really where we should have shifted a long time ago. And she wants to do more of that. And so this is the opportunity to have a wake up call and say, what are we waiting for? There's a lot of disruption right now, but I mean, housing is not going away. Right. And so we're using this time, even though there's pressure on our businesses and pressure for all sorts of weird stuff, right? To say, how can we invest in ourselves? How do we use this as a pivot point to go to another level?
I love it. Dude, you mentioned rentals. So you guys have a bunch of rental properties, multifamily. It might be too early to tell.
Yeah, the rent's due today, so we're going to find out.
Yeah, I'm curious, man. I mean, I'm way curious.
Yeah.
I have a handful.
Me too.
Yeah, I've got one commercial tenant that she was kind of struggling before this anyway, and I'm working with her. To make it make sense for her. So if you're a landlord, especially for commercial and downtowns or small town stuff, now's the time to pick up the phone, call them, help them, negotiate with them ahead of time, things like that. Have you seen any impact yet, or was it still too soon?
Yeah, well, today is technically the first, so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think it depends on if you have, we have some B and C class properties. So some of our C class properties are probably going to be going to have a struggle. Some of the multifamily properties, which are pretty large properties, are student housing, and the colleges are we're closed for the year. And so now the good thing is a lot of them have ACH payments, so people don't have to physically deliver a check. We just take it out of the account, and we'll see how long that lasts. And then a lot of them, the parents co-sign for them as well. So, and a lot of people are paying for stuff with student loans that they've already gotten. So we'll see how that goes. But it's interesting. I talked to we don't manage our own properties. We have a property manager. But I talked to another property manager here in Dallas and that manages the same class of property that we have. And he said something that was super hopeful, because I had been thinking it's going to be worse. And he's like, you know what? We have tenants right now that if they're working at Walmart, or like we went to Chick-fil-A today through the drive-through. I mean, that thing's like backed up around the corner. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of kind of entry-level jobs. If you're a C-class tenant, you work at places like that, that your job is safe and secure right now, right? But if you were a waiter or a waitress, or some of the other businesses have been hit hard, movie theaters or something like that, if you were in a position like that, your job's decimated, right? So I think it's going to be a mixture of people that have no problem paying and people that do have a problem. The unfortunate thing is, the media has gotten a hold of this kind of movement of people shouldn't have to pay their rents, and some politicians have said that, which is like, you have no idea what the consequences of saying that are out loud. I mean, that impacts, you're just shifting the burden from one person to another, right? They just assume we're all these like big rich companies that rent, they don't have expenses, right? It's like, yeah. Exactly. But time is going to tell how that works. The stimulus stuff, we'll see how fast that takes hold to roll through, and how long people are out of a job for. We'll see.
Yep. Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming on, man. I know, like I said, you've been a very consistent returning guest. Appreciate the heck out of you.
Yeah. You too,
we'll find more about you, about InvestorFuel, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could go. We have a ton of content on FlipNerd. I'm pointing back here because that's our logo there. FlipNerd.com. If folks want to learn more about InvestorFuel, our mastermind, our next event's actually coming up here pretty fast in about a month, and that's InvestorFuel.com. And then we have our agency, which is the Investor Machine. Actually, is theinvestormachine.com. If folks want to learn more about how we use data to drive better advertising, more efficient advertising. So any of those things, or connect on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, guys and gals, thank you for listening to this episode. I want to recap a couple of things. So number one, like I've been saying, do not pull back your marketing. Okay. That's one of the cardinal sins, that if you do that, then you're going to be cutting down your pipeline. Lean into the marketing, lean into building relationships, like Mike said, lean into getting out content and building value with people right now. Don't pull back and do a wait and see. Make sure to lean up your business, right? One thing that we even did was we put a temporary hold on hiring full-time salaried employees for the next 60 days. And all the new hires, we have 3 right now, are all contractors. And they're legit contractors. So that's something you guys can really look at that. What can you do around your hiring and people placement? Lean up a little bit, trim some expenses, but move more of that expense into smart marketing. Dial back the broad marketing, hyper focusing on the smartest stuff. So guys, we want to help you wade through the coronavirus situation together. Come out stronger. That's our aim, is to come out stronger together, rather than just like, hey, fear mongering like everyone else is. This is a serious situation. I don't want to downplay it. It's a serious thing. There's been a lot of people impacted. But if we wade through this together and have a positive attitude, get around the right people, get around the right groups, we can find opportunities, pivot where we need to, and continue to add value. So thank you guys. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on Apple, iTunes, whatever it's called now, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to this, and give us a rating and review. And guys, go find InvestorFuel online if you're looking to plug into an amazing group. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, guys.